So next slide, please. Yeah. Why study in Canada? Uh, so there are many options like US, Australia, UK. So why study in Canada? Why specifically Canada? Canada is one of the top 10 countries in the world to live in. It is one of the best one to move into. So Canada tops the list of the educational spending per capita of all the countries in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Tuition fee is less compared to other countries like UK, US, Australia, etc. And Canadian universities are internationally regarded for their high academic standards and emphasis on the research and post-secondary education. And you have many scholarship programs over there, like Concordia University undergrad scholarship, then Canadian Commonwealth scholarship program, and government policy mandates diversity. So regarding job opportunities, so prospects are strong in Canada's international grads. The country's university boasts links to more than 5,000 global collaboration agreement. So these are like perks of studying in Canada, and they also have an amazing concept called GIC. GIC functions is similar to our fixed deposit account in Indian banks. So you're supposed to no, you are supposed to deposit around 10,000 CAD in an Canadian bank like CIBC, Scotia, or even ICICI. So as soon as you land in Canada, both CIBC and Scotia Bank deposits $2,000 in your account upon your activation. So if you're going for CIBC, it gives you around $1,000 for 45 days up to 1 year. And if it's Scotia or ICICI, you'll get around $667 every 30 days up to 1 year. So yeah. And Canada has a lot of migration program. As I already mentioned, that it's a country that promotes diversity. People are largely optimistic, hopeful, happy, and peaceful and positive. So I'm just glad that I can still say that and believe in it. I guess all of the above reasons are enough for you to understand why Canada is considered as one of the best country to live and one of the best country to study. Uh, Over to you, Nirosha.
Thank you, Shweta. A very good evening to one and all present here. I am Nirosha and I'll walk you through the admission and application process. So these are two entire different things. And so let me first talk about the application process. Before we go into the process, one important thing you need to know is the academic terms. So the entire year is split into three terms: the winter term, summer term, and fall term. So winter is between January and April. Summer term is from May to August, and fall term is from September to December. So these are the possible three terms to which you could apply depending upon the availability of your specialization. So coming to tips on shortlisting universities, I would like to give a few tips and I'll brief you about each and every thing of that. First is the availability of desired specification. So once you plan to do your master's, you would probably decide on what. Can I please have you guys on mute? Thank you. All right. So one of the important things is checking for the availability of your desired specification. So when you plan to do your master's, you'll probably narrow down on what kind of specialization you want to do, right? So after that is done, you will have to rank your university depending upon the university ranking. So there are a lot of ranking websites like the QS ranking and all. So you can check that and see where the university you want to apply stands. And the third important thing is the acceptance rate. So as we're all international students, every university has a certain acceptance rate for international students. So only if that rate is high enough, you would probably stand a chance in that university. Apart from that, you will also have to check about the job opportunities, the co-op opportunities. Co-op is something similar to our internships that we do here in India, and as well as research opportunities. Another important thing to check is the duration of course. Usually, master's program is for 2 years, but you still have courses that are for 1.5 years. So depending upon what kind of course you want, you can also check the duration of the course and decide accordingly. So once all these are done, you need to match your eligibility criteria with that particular university's admission requirements. So so this could be based on your CGPA, your IELTS score, or your achievements and all those stuff. The next important thing is the tuition fee. Most of the international students who apply go in for educational loans. So I think in spite of that, to keep track of the tuition fee is really important because that plays an important role when you have to, make enough money to repay the loan and all that stuff. And weather, yes, Canada is known for its cold weather, but it is not unmanageable at all. So I think that once you start exploring different things about different cities, you'll probably gather more information about that. And another important thing to note is applications normally open in the month of October. And all of these, the admission process, that is, the decisions are normally made on a rolling basis. That is, it is earlier to, apply so that it is better for you in the sense, once you apply, as soon as the deadlines are open, you will have your results. That is, if you are either accepted or not. So depending upon that, you can apply to other universities. So earlier the better. So have this in mind if you're planning to apply for the next year's intake. So you'll have to probably apply during the October month of the previous year. So that's how it usually works. And application fee will be somewhere in between 90 to 120 Canadian dollars. And so, like I said, the university shortlisting. So once you have, put your universities in these particular criteria, it's better you have a spreadsheet and then organize them into three main groups. That is ambitious, moderate, and safe. Safe universities are the ones you can bet for sure you will get an admit, where the admission requirements, you are sure you meet the admission requirements, and you can, depending upon other reviews and all that, you can bet for sure you'll get an admission. And the moderate ones are the ones you might or might not. And the ambitious ones are the really, the top colleges, but you can still give it a try because it's better to, not leave any stone unturned. So you can try it for, yeah, so you can try for the ambitious universities as well. So once the entire application process is done, you will get your offer of admission, which usually takes somewhere between 2 to 3 months also in some cases. So you will have to probably wait. It's not as quick as the universities in US or other countries. And then once you have your offer of admission, you will be given about 14 to 50 or 40 to 20 days time to either accept or decline your offer. So once you've accepted the offer, you can go ahead with your tuition fee payment and the visa procedure. So like I just said, for this, your IELTS or any language proficiency test, shortlisting of university, and the SOP and LOR. So these are two important other things. So SOP, most of you would already know it. It's called the statement of purpose. And it's the single most important part of your application that will tell the admission committee who you are, what has influenced your career path so far, your professional interests, and where you plan to go from here. So that is what your statement of purpose would say. And LOR is letter of recommendation, which you get from your professors right now from your undergrad institution. So that can, emphasize on the professor can rate you among other candidates and elaborate on your. And sometimes it could also be from professionals, companies, right? You would have interned in some company and they can give you a letter of recommendation. So ideally, these two tell why you are a best fit for that particular university. Next slide, please. All right. So yeah, so that's what you do. You apply to the university, and once you get your offer letter, you accept it or decline it depending upon your choice. And in most cases, it is better to accept it in the first place because you would still have time to, pay your tuition fee and all that. So you can still wait for the other universities while having accepted the previous ones. And once you're done with that, once you made a decision, you can go ahead paying the tuition fee and the visa procedures. So I think my friends will brief you on that a little later now. Over to Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Nirosha.
Thank you, Nirosha, for that. Hello, all. I'm Sahana from TDC team. Now, moving on to something which is very major for you to choose as a student. We have seen the procedure of how admissions are done, how you can try to shortlist, and all of those. But being a student, what your first criteria would be is to choose the kind of program you want to study at. For UG students who are currently in their undergraduates, they have a lot of options for their masters. That is, you have the normal master's program, which is split into different categories. One could be the MASc or the MSc programs. These are the research-based programs where you will have to first contact a supervisor who is a professor in that particular university where you're willing to study at. They should be ready to accept the thesis or the research work that you're trying to do. And if they are ready to fund you for that and take you under them, then you can apply to that university. In this case, one of the requirement would be that one of the letter of recommendations or the LOR is from that particular advisor who has chosen you as well. The other simple way of doing the masters is an M engineering, or also called as the graduate program. In M engineering or a graduate program, what happens is that you have three different options of studying this. One is a course based where you just take up courses and you complete your lectures, you write exams, you have assignments, you attend seminars, you have to give presentations, and you can end your program. The other way is a thesis based one, wherein which you take up some courses, you also come up with a thesis, you present your thesis and get approval for it. And maybe further on, if you're willing to continue your studies, you could even do your PhD based on those. The third type is a project-based M engineering, wherein which it is very similar to how the undergraduate program or the normal Bachelor of Engineering is being done. That is, you have certain courses to be studied, and at the end of the program, you need to do a project and present that you have completely understood everything. You present your project, and they give you marks for the same. This master's program could be nowhere less than 1.5 years. So the usual tenure is 1.5 to 3 years. In case of MASc or MSc courses, you have a tenure of 3 to 5 years, depending on your thesis and your research work that is being done. There is also another thing known as the graduate certificate. This is for people who wish to study masters but do not have a lot of time to spend on it. So there are two ways of doing a graduate certificate program. One could be the offline mode, one could be the online mode, or in some cases, some universities offer it as a mixed course. That is, for most part of the time, you can take it up online, and probably only for the final level of your program, you'll have to come to that particular place and give your examination or your presentations and complete the program. This is a 1 to 1.5 year course. There is also another option for people who have taken up UG or diploma as their basic education. So this is known as advanced diploma, where this would be a 2 to 3 year course, and this would have similar weightage as your masters or your M engineering, but it is just that people who have usually done UG don't take this up because many topics covered in their UG are also part of this advanced diploma course. If it is for people who are just completing their 12th and they want to pursue their studies in an abroad university, they have options such as diploma or UG, the normal UG that we go through here. Similar way, the UG there is also for 4 years. Or they also have a UG plus PG integrated course, which is a 5 to 6 year course. Moving to requirements, each of these different kind of things have their own specific requirements. Some general requirements would be the ones already mentioned, which is your LOR, SOP, your language proficiency tests, and your CV. These things play a very important role in how you're trying to present yourself to the university. Coming to your LORs, your professors or your professionals, for people who are working, they are something that the university try to get from whom you are recommending from. And the person or the professor whom you have recommended would recommend you to the university. So that is how they portray you there. Coming to your SOP, this is like you portraying yourself to the university as to who you are, how you have been, and why do you think you are a potential candidate for them. This is the only way they can get to know you and get to know your interests and think about whether or not they have to admit you into their university. The other things are the language proficiency tests, where usually in case of IELTS, you need to have an overall of 6.5 out of 9 with at least 6 in each band. The bands include your reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. Major part is your academic achievements. So to get into any of the kind of universities that you sought them into, which is ambitious, moderate, or safe, you need to have certain academic achievements. It is recommended that you have no less than 75 to 80% in your undergraduate or in your diploma for you to apply and get in some good reputed universities. Moving on to the deadlines. The deadlines play a very important role in you trying to apply to the university, you getting an admit, you getting an offer letter and accepting it, and for you to pay your tuition fee and actually start attending classes. So, coming to the first level, with respect to applying for an university for admissions, you need to have a buffer time of at least 8 to 12 months in hand for you to apply for the following year. I'll give you an example. Suppose you are trying to take your course or your program which starts from fall 2021, which is September 2021. Then your admissions would open for that particular program by September end or October of 2020. So before this time, you should have completed your SOP. I mean, keep it ready. Keep ready your IELTS or any other language proficiency test and all other documents that is required for the university. You will find all these information as to what document is required, what you have to submit when, and what is the mode of submission. All of these in each and every university's website. They have clear-cut definitions for normal students and international students. So you can go into the international students portal and check so that you don't miss out on any of these documents. So once you have applied, you have to wait for probably 2 to 6 months to get a reply from the university. Note that the application deadline for the international students might end by Jan, starting from India, but for Canadian students, it might end only by April or May. So this is why we previously mentioned that we need to see the amount or the percentage of intake that is there for international students. The other important thing would be that, like already, which is already mentioned, there would be a 14 to 20-day time given to you once you receive an offer of admission from that particular university. So during this time, you can work out all your pros and cons and try to decide and accept the offer. Some universities have a nominal fee to be paid after you accept the offer for them to make sure that you are getting into that university. But many other universities don't have this, and directly it's just a normal tuition fee that you pay. And the duration of time between you accepting the offer and paying the tuition fee might be within 1 month to 3 to 4 months of gap. The major part for any international student trying to study abroad would be the topic of finances. So, like the way many people think, it is not very difficult for you to go abroad and study. Yes, agreed that many of us have financial crisis and we may find it difficult to take loans and do it, but it is not something which is impossible. There are multiple ways of funding yourself. So the first primary way anybody would try to choose to avoid things like interest payment and things is your self-funding. So if you have the resources, you can use your resources and fund yourself for your studies. Next major thing that most students take up is the education loans. So the educational loans are of two types, which is provided here. It could be collateral type or the non-collateral type. And being students, there are a lot of concessions given for students. And if it is girls or women who are trying to take it up, you have concessions given on the interest rate. Scholarships are some provided by by the government for international students and also students from the same country. Tuition fee waiver is something that is decided by the university. This is something which is not that everybody would get. Based on your previous academic achievements, your other extracurricular achievements, or something special about you, there are chances that the university might decide to waive a portion of your tuition fee. So bear in mind that this would be only a small portion of your tuition fee and not the entire tuition fee. Grants and bursaries are also things which are given to you by the government or by the university, depending on your history. Awards could be for various categories, be it academics, sports, or any other extracurricular stuff. Teaching and research assistantship are two things which are usually provided for people who take up the MSc or MSc courses. So this is also a way that people who take up these courses can earn. So what happens in these courses is that suppose you find a professor or a faculty there who is ready to take you as an assistant under them, be it for their teaching or be it for their research. During your first term, you would be given a buffer time to learn how the system works, how things are done there, and all of these. So during your first term, you wouldn't be allowed to work. And from your second term, when you start working under them as a TA or a RA, you would be paid somewhere between 5,000 to 7,000 Canadian dollars per term. So you can use this for either your living expense, your tuition fee, or for anything. So coming to an estimation of costs that is usually taken up or borne by the students, the major cost would be of that of the tuition fee, living expense, and transportation. It is a glad to note point that in Canada, for students, the transportation department has given a lot of concessions, and you really don't spend as much as you expect for your transportation. Tuition fee and living expense being a major part of you living in any place and your studies further. With respect to masters, we could give you an estimate that for a normal university, reputed one, your per year tuition fee would range somewhere between 13,000 to 25,000 Canadian dollars. If it is some private institutions, they do have tuition fee which go up to 40,000 a year. So the living expenses in Canada would range between 7,000 to 12,000 or $15,000 depending on the province where you stay. So this gives us an overall sum of about 30 to 40,000 Canadian dollars for your entire masters if it is about 2 years. And if you have got admitted in a little over the bracket, which is a costly university, then this could go to about 50,000 Canadian dollars. Talking with respect to Indian currency, you would spend about 30 to a maximum of 50 lakhs for your entire education and living together in Canada. Over to Krishna.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sahana. Thank you for the brief explanation on that. So, job opportunities. Before you choose a country for abroad studies, job opportunities are important things that you look out for. So, while studying, can I work part time and handle my expenses? Yes, it is a yes, in specifically in Canada. So there is a concept called minimum wage concept in countries like Canada. Like you get paid a minimum of say $14 to $18, and you can work as a in part-time jobs as students for 20 hours a week. So 20 into $15 would be $300 per week. 4 weeks you would amount to $800 to $1,000. So you can work and you can take care of your living expenses. That is really possible in Canada or any country abroad, especially in Canada. There is this minimum wage concept. According to provinces, it will vary, but on an average, it's around $14 to $20. So there are a lot of internship opportunities that are given, or you can network and get about. So these are really good opportunities that can help you matching your expenses as well as improve your abroad work experience. So apart from this, you have to network a lot. You do not have campus jobs or say the regular sort of things that happen in India. So you got to network through LinkedIn, Monster Job, Indeed, and other platforms. There are a lot of other platforms, like you need to network yourself. Updating your LinkedIn profile from right now is really, really important. Make connections. We can help you out. Probably you can connect with us on LinkedIn and other platform, Instagram and other things like that. Stay connected with a lot of people abroad. So this is going to be helpful on different levels. So this is one of the crucial factors you network. So people have to recommend you or refer you into a particular job or position and things like that. So that is considered an essential factor. You don't have campus placement and other things. Apart from that, you can volunteer out in professional clubs out there and things like that, which you can add to your profile in order to get a job or thing like that. So whether I can only work part-time as a student with a study permit, you can only work part-time, like only 20 hours per week. But during scheduled breaks, say you have a summer break during your year, or you have a scheduled break for 1 month or something like that, you can work full-time as a student even. So full-time means, it means 40 hours per week. So that is going to help you a lot with your day-to-day expenses and other factors. So apart from all this part-time, full-time internship, there is a thing called co-op program. Say the program itself will have internship or a paid work as part of your curriculum. So it means that say for one semester you study, the next semester you would be working as well as studying, thing like that. So you would be earning a lot of money in that way as well as studying parallelly. So there are only specific programs that offer co-op. You need to be aware of it and check what is happening out there. So this is very important. So all these factors are considered important. Most probably you have to network a lot in order to obtain a full-time job later. So these factors are going to help you out. Probably a lot of us are looking at job after our masters because it's going to help us in clearing our educational loans and other factors. So this is going to help on a different level. So hope you get you got a vivid idea about this. Passing on to my friend for the next slide. Yeah, Abdul.
Yep. Hello, everybody. This is Abdul from the team. So this is regarding the study permits and visa applications for the Canada. So I guess you have a brief idea now about the tuition fees, loans, co-op, and everything. So after you get your application approved by the university or college, so you would want to go to Canada, right? So the first step to go towards Canada after your application is your study permit. You apply for a study permit online through the IRCC's website. That's the cic.ca. So once you submit your application online, it will be processed, reviewed, and you will be issued. You'll be approved for a study permit. So once you are approved for a study permit, you will be issued a visa. That's a sticker on your passport. So basically, there are two categories of study permits. That is a general category where any nationality person can apply it, and one is an accelerated category that is for only 9 countries in the world, and lucky Indians are part of it. So we are eligible for an accelerated category that is called student direct stream. So the other one is non-student direct stream. So what's the basic difference between these two? Why it is called an accelerated one or a special one? I can tell you about it. It's because if you apply in this category, you will get your approval for study permit in 2 weeks, or let's say as soon as possible. But if you apply in the non-accelerated or the general category, it could take max up to 2 months also. Usually the average time would be 45 days. So what are the requirements for SDS and non-SDS category is, it's simple. If you are going for SDS category, you have to pay your fees, that's specifically your tuition fees. For 1 year, you should have a guaranteed investment certificate, that is GIC, for a minimum of 10,000 CAD or 11,000 CAD if you're applying for Quebec. And then if along with these, you have to submit your medicals and biometrics. That's it. So this is the basic requirement for category in SDS. But if you are going in non-SDS, you did not pay 1 year tuition fee, but it is limited to one term tuition fee. So apart from this, it's not mandatory to have a GIC, but we do recommend you have GIC for more chances of approval. So apart from this, your medical biometrics are common, but the one thing that makes a difference is your financial documents. So in the SDS category, since you're paying for 1 year fee, so the government is sure that you can have your living expenses and tuition fee cover for 1 year. But in non-SDS category, you do not show. It's not mandatory to show your GIC, and you only pay for one term. So you should show that you have enough proof of funds for you to live in the country for 2 years. So here you have to submit your financial documents. If you're an employee, you have to submit your offer letter, your pay slips, your ITR, your parents' ITRs, your loan certificate, your disbursement letter, sanction letter, and all these things. So it's a pretty bit hectic thing if you're going for non-SDS one. It totally depends on your bank from which you are processing your loan. So if it is possible, we recommend you to go in SDS category only. And then there is something called S1 and SW1. So this is basically the category of visa sticker you're going to get. So if your offer letter has something like co-op or internship, which is mandatory or essential, then you will be given the SW1 visa, that is study and work. If your offer letter doesn't tell anything about the co-op, or if it is optional, then you would get only S1. So this is the categorization. And work hours for part-time. So basically the process is you would apply for a study permit from India. Once you are approved for it, you will get a travel certificate that is called your visa. Once you reach the port of entry, probably it's Toronto or Vancouver or Ottawa. So once you are there, you will get your physical study permit. So the conditions of study permit will define the working hours, which I think Krishna has already mentioned. It is 20 hours when you are a full-time student and 40 hours per week when you are not a full-time student. That is usually on scheduled breaks. So it depends on your university when they give you scheduled break. For University of Ottawa, it's summer term is a scheduled break. So that's it, guys, regarding study permit. So I would tell you about the cost also. So it would cost a total of 235 CAD, roughly around 13,000 Indian rupees, which includes your visa fee and biometric fee. In case you want to reapply your application, it would cost additional 8,400 rupees. And that's it. So passing on to Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Abdul. So this would be a lot of information. We would have gone about a lot of various topics on this. So it would be mind-boggling. Once you make a research or slowly go about it, you will understand a lot of information. We have given so much information in single presentation that within a short span of time. Actually, we wanted to give this information because you need to plan very prior, like at least a 1 year ahead or something like that, for starting from your IELTS exam, GMAT, GRE, and all those stuff for your abroad dreams. So you need to do a lot of research. We will be there to help you out and guide you. So we have a program. Nerosha will be sharing a link in the chat. Actually, we have a student ambassador program where we want students like to spread about different things in your college, because there are a lot of aspirants and students out there who don't know about, say, the abroad process or how to apply, what are the exams to look for, what are the universities out there, say this minimum wage, job opportunities. There are a lot of questions while choosing an abroad education or pursuing a master's. So we want to help you out, guys, like in doing that. And we want to select certain people who can be part of our community, who can take this information, because we would be in Canada. So we might not be able to be in direct touch. So you might be able to connect with all the students out here in India. So help their dreams out. So there is a link shared by Nerosha, student ambassador enrollment. Whoever is interested, do enroll in that. We will be sharing more information, like we will connect with you. And if you are a right candidate, we will select you onto our student ambassador program also. So there is their Instagram page. You can just follow out, ask your queries and all those stuff. There are other links provided. do follow all our social media platforms. We will be out there, and whatever we do, what are the services we do, is everything for free. Like, we recommend services, we help out students. We are trying to. We have been in your position a few years down the line. We have come here and we are going to Canada and things like that. So we are here to help out all the students out here. So we will take up question and answers now. Like, you, some had scholarship questions and other questions. So you can ask questions one by one, like in chat, or unmute your mic one by one, and then we will take up the questions. Yeah, we can start with the question and answer session.
Yes, Krishna, I would like to answer Vamshi since he had already asked about it.
Yeah, sure.
So, Vamshi, so you're trying to ask if there are any fully funded scholarships in Canada like that is there in Europe, right? Okay, in Canada, frankly talking, you do not have anything that says your entire tuition fee is waived off or your entire studies is being totally funded by somebody else, that is the government or the university or anything of the sort. But there are a lots of grants, scholarship, bursaries, and various other things that are given to students, and various different funding sources also that are available for students from home country, in our case, which is India, as well as from the Canadian government and the university you're applying to. Major ones, they are divided into something called as internal funding sources and external funding sources. So, something like loyalty points, maybe some alumni of that particular university recommends you, and because of that, you get into it, or something like sports scholarships, something like your particular course or your program is offering you some discounts or your scholarships, you have things like these. So these would be coming under the internal funding sources, and some things like the external funding sources would be things like international governments provide you, being an international student, some scholarships based on your history or based on the eligibility criteria that they have. If you satisfy those and you apply and you get through, you do have a lot of funding provided to you by them. So these are the different kinds of scholarships that you would get. But with respect to the research degree programs that are there, suppose you get into an MASc or MSc program, then your university themselves or the professor under whom you would be trying to do it would be funding your research. That would cover at least like major portion of your total and studies expense would be covered by them. So that is one of the main requirement as well as a criteria for you to even get into a research based program. So these are the things that is available as scholarships for international students. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Sahana. Vamsi, is your doubt cleared, or do you have any other specific questions or some additional detail you need? Or anyone else, other questions, they are welcome. Nitish has asked a question here. Okay. So MS in Canada and VLSI specialization. Can I know what are the best colleges for VLSI and opportunities in semiconductor industry in Canada? So yeah, Nitish, it's a very good question. Specifically about VLSI, there are opportunities as such, but I'm not very sure of the specific opportunities and the universities to go about. But there are many universities like
Krishna, I can take this.
Yeah, sure, never sure.
Yeah, so with respect to VLSI, so they usually are offered as a specialization in electrical engineering or electrical and computer engineering. So if you take these as majors, you can probably specialize in VLSI. So some of the top universities are University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, University of Waterloo, University of Alberta, and McGill University. So for some, you might also need to take the GRE for these top universities. So I think these are all the top universities. So if you need a further clarification, I think you can DM us and we will get back to you on Instagram.
Uh, Vamshi has another question, and yeah, Balaji has another question. Yeah, Vamshi's question, Sahana, do you want to take that and clarify it? It's not during application process, I guess.
Yeah, I'll take that. Um, so your question is for scholarship, whether we should apply during application Okay. So for this thing, what I would suggest you is, since we told you need to have a buffer time of at least 8 to 12 months beforehand, it is during this period that you will also look into these kind of options that is available for you. So in case you are trying to apply to something that would take a lot of time, so right from the time you're trying to apply for a university, you can even send your applications for the scholarships. So probably by the time you get your admission and offer letter, even this thing would be in a yes or no situation. If it is something that would take very little time or they have an easy go process, you could probably pitch in at a later time. But there is nothing specific that is it only the during application process you should apply for this or anything. If you're applying for any of the internal funding that is provided by the university, that is some international students based on their history or their academic credentials or even their other background that they have, they are eligible for financial help from the university. So many universities provide you this option of choosing that or no when you are applying for them itself. So if it is with respect to the university that you are trying to get something, you can do it right away during your application. Most universities do not have a separate application form for funding. They can ask you the questions while you are trying to apply to them itself. Some universities have a separate link for this, wherein which you'll have to apply to them through that link. If it is with respect to the government and other things, you can try to do it whenever the time is right for you. So they will have their own deadlines and application start and end dates. So you can apply during that period of time.
Okay, thank you, Sahana. So Balaji has a question here. So, from where to start preparing for masters in Canada, as I'm now studying third year information technology? Balaji, I would like to clarify first. Choose a domain. Like, what is your field? What is your plan? So then go about the requirements. There would be, say, first basic requirement would be IELTS, and if you are looking at top universities, some universities might require GRE also. So start preparing for those exams right now itself and start planning the universities. You can make a research. We can help you out. Once you choose a domain, we can suggest you like these are top universities you can look at. If it matches that program, like start with that. So, and probably the choose the country too. That is a very good thing to look after.
And adding on to Krishna's point, a very important thing is your research publication. So ensure that any project you work on, you publish it in an international journal or an IEEE journal or something like that, because that has a special weightage in your resume when you apply to foreign universities. That actually plays an important role. And since you're in third year right now, I think you still have 1 year's time, and you can look into journal publications, and internships and other experiences also count. So yeah, so these were the things I wanted to add on.
Sure, sure. Okay, Natasha. So for cybersecurity, you can able to say the best college. So probably Shweta.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. There are a lot of colleges for that gives you cybersecurity programs like University of Toronto, McGill University, University of Ottawa. Then you have Ryerson, Concordia. So check with the universities. Some universities provide 1 year degree and some provides 2 years. So browse for some universities and check about their requirements, and that's it about the cybersecurity.
To add on to what Shweta said, there are a few more universities like Sheridan College, Red River College, and University of New Brunswick, where there is a difference in Canada between a college and a university. So colleges are something that do not provide you with a proper masters or a higher education system, what you call as masters here. So the universities are things who provide you masters, and colleges are people who provide you things like the advanced diploma that we spoke about. So depending on the type of course that you want to take up, you can approach either colleges or universities and try to apply to them. That is what I wanted to add.
So next question, MS in power system in Canada. Okay. So best, are you looking at colleges or universities, Kalaiarasan? There are a difference between colleges and universities. Be aware of that, actually. So there are, with respect to power systems, I guess there are universities which provide that. As said, petroleum is one of the most important industry out there, but power system being completely different, it might be related to a lot of things down there. There are industries with orient to power systems out there in Canada, actually. Okay. He asked it.
Adding on to what Krishna was telling, so if you're planning to do something with related to power system there, it is also known with the name of power engineering or power technology, where later on you can take up specialization into different kinds of power systems that is available as well. So top universities for these would be Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, British Columbia Institute of Technology, College of North Atlantic, Medicine Hat College, Red River College, Cambrian College, Georgian College, Clare College, and Lambton College. I know I was a little fast, but I hope I could convey some message. I'll probably try typing them onto the chat so you can have it for reference.
Okay. Ritesh has asked, after BCom degree, which is a good job with good packaging? If you're asking out there abroad in Canada or something like that, it's very difficult to get a job directly from India right out there. I wouldn't say impossible, it's almost impossible because you have to network well and you have to have an amazing profile. And the employer from Canada would prefer who is already present there, who has completed his degree. There are a lot of competition out there even. So he would prefer a student or a person who is already completed his education, and that too in Canadian university, which is a top rated university out there, rather than considering a student directly from here. So it might not be a great option, but you can obviously try it out. If you have a very good profile, amazing contacts, and if you're able to network and convince the employer abroad, yeah, you have a shot, but it's a very long shot, I would say. So the next question I'm interested in. Okay. So hope Vamshi, you got your questions answered. Like, okay, you have a question, new question. Okay. Electric vehicle technology and automotive engineering. Is Canada is good? If it is, can you suggest me some of the best universities in Canada? Okay.
Okay, I would like to take that question up. So, with respect to automobile industries, as you would already know, probably Germany and Canada are to be the best places for you to study your automobile engineering or your automotive engineering. And with respect to the universities, most universities in Canada, because that being a major hub for them for automobile industry, they have great options and various different and new kinds of specializations available within automotive engineering as well. So I guess most of the universities that you try applying to or try searching for, you would get a lot of options within automotive engineering, and maybe you could even narrow down your specialization to something specific in the same field.
So yes, that hope that answered your question, Vamshi. So we have the next question. What are the requirements to get maximize scholarship? Yeah, you can do a lot of volunteer international publications, as Sahana mentioned. So we have to do all of these things. So you can do all those stuff. So we are nearing the end of session. We have some more questions. Probably I'll take one last question about GRE and IELTS in home because of there is no center. IELTS centers are getting open slowly, so that there is a possible. Yeah, you can start preparing. You can. Yeah,
Krishna, can I take it?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, for GR in IELTS, you don't need a separate coaching centers. It's better you start preparing from now. So for the GRE, I suggest you the Manhattan preparation book, and for IELTS, go for the Cambridge one. So that will be more than enough for and you can also look out for some IELTS tests and GRE tests. There's a lot of free test online, like the ETS provides like two free tests, and Manhattan Prep provides like one free test, and you have Kaplan that provides two free tests. So look out for some sites like that, and you can start preparing for that.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. Hope that helped it. You can also ping us on our Instagram page. Maybe we will recommend you certain resources, whatever we said, things like that. So we will have a small activity now. All of you, can you open your Instagram actually and open our page actually? Like there are a lot of posts and a lot of things out there. Like we will do a small activity. Are you all like available on Insta actually? If there is someone not available, let us know. Hello, Shakti. We will take your questions offline as we are running out of time. Please ping on our Instagram page. We will like take up the questions out there. So on our Instagram page, if you see, we have been posting a lot of updates actually every day, every now and then. Even the IL centers about the opening, there are a lot of updates. We are in touch with everyone. Also, we do recommend a lot of helpful services which help students, like where you can prepare for GRE, IELTS and other things, and for visa services, a lot of things. We would be making a lot of recommendations. You can personally ask us what to opt for, where to prepare, things like that. We will be helping you guys out. So we will be helping you out. So you can just check out all the posts and other things. There are a lot of information out there. And yeah, probably you can share it out to your friends about this page. Post the Instagram story. Probably you can do it right now if you are online. Like you can post an Instagram page right now. Are you guys all online and are you on Instagram? Can I have it on chat? Like yes or no, something like that? Yes.
Just a minute. I would like to just tell that I have posted a link where you could get free practice tests for your IELTS. So this is for people who wanted links related to IELTS preparation test. So when you go to the link, you have something called as IELTS exam library. So you can take up academic or general tests. You would get instant results for the kind of answers that you have written and the corrections as to where you went wrong. So that link would be helpful as well. Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone is on Instagram. So you can make a creative post about us. Like if the session was helpful, and tag us on your Instagram post, and probably even make a story out of it. So that would help us actually. We want to help a lot of students out there everywhere. So our team is basically throughout India and even in Canada. So this is going to help a lot of people. We believe we can guide a lot of people since we are in the process and we have come across all the things, say GMAT, GRE, IELTS and everything. So we can help out other students starting from first year, second year, third year. Hope we are able to do that. Post the story right now, tag us, keep us followed, ask your questions over DM. Also, Nerosha, can you post the links one more time, mail ID and other stuff so that they know it?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, sure. So if you're not on Instagram, here you go. So if you're not on Instagram, here is our mail ID too. You see that? So that's our mail ID. So you can find that there. Like these links should be helpful for you guys. Cool. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending the sessions. So if you have further doubts and any other queries or something like that, ping us on, mail us. We will share you the details.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you for making this session successful.
Thank you. Special thanks to Manunidhi, Mitresh, and the team from Panimala Institute of Technology. So they had helped us organize this session. Probably we will reach out to more colleges and conduct more sessions that would help you guys in all aspects abroad. Specifically Canada, if you are planning for Canada, you should definitely be in touch with us actually. So we will be helping you in a lot of ways. Starting from your preparation for GRE, GMAT and everything, we will be help you out. Stay in touch with us. So we will help you out.
Thank you, guys. And
Thank you.
we will try sharing a link in our profile, suppose if possible, of the recording of this particular webinar. So just in case you want to ever refer, you could probably get in touch.
Do share out in stories, reach out to us, make us reach more students and help out more people through our Instagram thing. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Bro, what about power system engineering in Canada?
Who's this? Who's this actually?
Kalayarasan, bro.
Okay, ping us on Instagram. We will get you more info. Okay. We will explain.
Actually, we have, I just sent a message in the chat if you can check. I have already answered that question. So I did put a list of things that you can get for power engineering.
Okay. Sahana has put up a list. You are able to see that Kalayarasan, Lambton College, Clare College, Georgian College.
I'll do one thing. I'll post that message again.
If your questions are unanswered, please ping on our Instagram page. Ask us your queries directly. Like
Probably you
we
can
will
see
help
now,
you
these
out.
are just few of the colleges, and there are a lot more colleges that help you out with the same courses.
So we will end this meet.
Yep, I think that's it, guys, from our end. See you again in the future.
Thank you guys. Ping us, keep in touch, mail us or reach us through our social media platforms. Thank you guys. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye guys. Bye.